Hello, viewers. Welcome back to another episode of my show. As I have made multiple videos about resumes, interviews, cover letters, and much more beyond uh, coaching about how to land an interview and get your dream job, here are a few things that candidates still baffle and get confused to when it comes to these three tricky questions. Tell me about yourself. And there are two other common tricky questions that need to be answered a certain way in an interview. In today's episode, I'm going to cover how to answer these three questions, starting with tell me about yourself. Interviewers tend to start the conversation with this question as an icebreaker, but it can often fluster job candidates and lead to long, rambling answers. Instead, keep your response short, ideally under 1 minute, and highlight your strengths and accomplishments. Remember, read between the lines. With this question, hiring managers are really asking, why are you sitting in front of me today? If you are so good, why are you looking for a job? The best approach for answering this question is explaining not just what you have done, but why, what motivates you, and how you want to make an impact, make a difference in your next role. The next, another important question, but very tricky, is what's your biggest accomplishment? Job candidates often make two mistakes when answering this question. They are either too humble in their response and can't articulate the impact they have made at work, or they can't quantify that impact with numbers. Numbers are pretty important. They're pretty critical. It's an important question to be ready for, but a lot of people bomb it. Pick the biggest accomplishment or achievement in your career, whether it's beating a sales or making a groundbreaking research, giving a great presentation, or organizing a big event, and briefly explain the steps you took to make it successful, to get there. Then make sure you mention numbers to explain the impact of your accomplishment on that particular business or that particular project. For example, say, I did X% of cost savings by doing so many improvements in the production floor, or I grew sales by X%, or I reduced the time of process for by X%. I increased the customer satisfaction by Y%. Make sure you include these numbers. The last and very tricky question every candidate is dreaded of is about a question related to the gap in your career or in your resume. So when the interviewer asks, can you explain this gap in your resume? If you recently lost or left your job, you might be dreaded by this interview question. A lot of candidates are ashamed or embarrassed by a resume gap and think they are the only person over the past 2 years that's experienced massive life changes. But remember, the ongoing coronavirus pandemic has upended many lives, and hiring managers are more empathetic to resume gaps than you might think. It's important to answer this question truthfully, directly, and unapologetically. It's okay to be vulnerable. Be vulnerable and briefly explain why you took 3 months or 6 months or a year to take care of X, or just to take care of yourself, or just to spend time. But make sure at the end, you should end it in a positive note and highlight what you learned from the experience. So make sure that every answer you have for these tricky questions are concise, brief, but give a convincing story that is related to the role that you are applying for. Be honest, be succinct. With that, I take your leave. I hope that this video is going to be helpful for you when you work for your job search and apply for your job. Apply for different jobs and prepare for interviews. One most important thing that I have learned personally is when you are applying for a job, take every application seriously and prepare for the interview. Practice is important. What I do personally is take a list of questions which are readily available on the internet and write my own answers. Yes, I write those answers and then I know what I should. So, of course, you do not have to write stories, but you should know the point that you want to discuss when such a question is asked. There are also tough and worst questions that can be asked, but it's important for you to prepare for those questions. And one more important tip that I would like to give you, and it's like an insider tip, is you don't have to have an exact answer for that exact question. But if you have already prepared for 20 questions for any interview, you can use the answer from any of the questions that you have already prepared for, and make sure that you have a good presence of mind to use those responses for such tricky questions and make a convincing story out of it. Of course, make sure everything is honest. With that, I take your leave. Thank you very much. I hope you liked my video. Please like my video, share and subscribe my channel if you haven't yet, and please keep watching my videos. Your support is my motivation. With that, thank you so much. Stay safe, stay healthy.